The Hogsty presents It's Just Business with Steve Thomas and Rich Rogers. And now, here's your host, Chris Larry.
Hello and welcome to another edition of It's Just Business, part of the Hogsty Network Presents, where we talk about the dollars and cents, the media, the lifeblood of cash that keeps the sports that we love moving and grooving. This is our third episode, and we're ready to get after it. We got some good topics for you. My name is Chris Larry, and I am joined by Steve. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing very good. I love to hear, cash is the lifeblood of sports. Cash is sort of the lifeblood of the world, which is, either bad or good depending on, how you shake out on those things. But certainly on this show, we think cash is a good thing. And I'm doing wonderful.
Definitely an important thing. Rich, how you holding up?
I'm holding up pretty good. Interested and excited about tonight's show and ready to get it started.
And I would just like to apologize to everyone else before Chris gets started because I made these guys record in the middle of the Wizards game. So to the extent I just jinxed the Wizards, I apologize to the listening audience out there. It's probably my fault.
No, we're going to win by 20 now.
That's right. It's Rich made a tough choice, and that tough choice is going out into the universe, and we reward him with a win tonight. I've already given up on all sports fandom after my Caps debacle of last week.
Oh man, that's
what
another.
Is it? I saw a stat. I think this is courtesy of ESPN, but don't hold me to that. I think it's ESPN. The city of Washington D.C. is actually has gone through the most sports season cycles without a team in its particular sports conference title game. I think it's something.
I think it was 72 seasons or something like that.
Yeah, it's something like that. And what that means is, we have an NFL season, then a baseball season, then a basketball season, then a hockey season. We've gone through 72 of those since the 1998. Rich, is it or Chris? Would one of you for the Caps were in the finals?
Yeah, 1998 Stanley Cup. Yeah,
yeah, that was. And before that, the last time I believe was the Redskins in the '91 Super Bowl year.
Yes.
So the DC area is actually last in the country for teams that have major sports in terms of at least getting to a conference title game. And so that doesn't make me feel good as a fan. I'm no longer a resident of DC, but I'm a general fan of DC sports, and including the Redskins. It does not make me feel good.
And and there was some talk on Twitter today about the number of division wins and that sports teams have here in the district, but not conference championships. So the Caps have amassed a ton of division wins without Stanley Cup.
Well, the Wizards will hopefully break the curse tonight and get to the Eastern Conference Finals with a decisive victory over the Boston Celtics. Well, with that inglorious beginning, let's jump into our topics here. Maybe that's something we can tag for a future episode as we look at the futility of DC sports.
Oh yeah, that's going to cheer up the public for sure. Let's do 15 minutes on how futile DC sports is.
The only positive spin on that stat would be that at least there are four the teams in the four major leagues, right? So it's easier to amass that many seasons as opposed to a market or city that has one or two pro teams.
Yeah, I think Minneapolis was second. The Minneapolis-St. Paul area was second, and they don't have a basketball team, and so they're down that at least. So
right.
We've amassed more seasons for those reasons.
The old school Minneapolis Lakers.
Yeah.
Well, of course, my Lakers are winners. If you erase the last 4 years at least.
Right.
All right, so let's jump into it. I feel like LaVar Ball is becoming the mascot of the early days of this show as we seem to return to Ball and his Ball family antics on a regular basis. So I think we are here to jump back into the Ball family drama and their shoe deal, right? The legendary $495 tennis shoe.
Well,
yes.
And if LaVar Ball wasn't such a unlikable person, I wonder if the reaction of the story would be completely different. Because what he's done is genius in an entrepreneurial sense, if it works. Because where this kind of whole thing started is that Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour all said no to LaVar Ball in terms of them signing Lonzo Ball, his son. The reason they all said no to him is that LaVar insisted on each of these teams carrying the Big Baller brand, which is the Ball family clothing line, as a co-branded item. Meaning that, if he had signed with Nike, Nike would put out Big Baller brand clothing. And, of course, Nike said, there's no way we're doing that because you guys are chump chains and we're Nike, and that's just impossible. We're not doing that. And so, in a bit of entrepreneurial genius, LaVar decides to put this shoe out. Now, we all laughed at it because he's a clown, and he's, the worst helicopter dad ever. But if Lonzo becomes a star, let's just go at it like this. If Lonzo becomes a star and people start buying these shoes, is all of a sudden he a genius?
I don't know. Now, we're talking, okay, let's go back to 1985 with the Michael Jordan brand and the Jordans. Now, we can argue whether $100 sneakers, which is what they were back then, is the equivalent of a $500, $495 pair of shoes now, is a good comparison. But I really just don't see anyone buying $495 pairs of shoes. And let me tell you why. Not necessarily for financial reasons, but what has he won? He didn't win any championship at the college level. He's not this larger-than-life basketball player in college. Maybe a guy like Steph Curry could sell a pair of $500 sneakers. But if you haven't won and people know that your dad is driving this, I don't see many people buying $495 pairs of shoes.
Well, they're not going to buy $495 pairs of shoes. I think you're not going to sell a lot of those on the mass market because people can't afford that. It is about dollars to a certain extent. The kid down the street isn't going to amass $500 very often, right? But you kind of got at my point, which is if it works, it only works if Lonzo becomes a star. And if Lonzo becomes a star, people are going to buy his shoes. If he doesn't become a star, the whole thing's going to fall apart. But what this is the kind of the equivalent of a band or a musician putting out a record on an independent label, or by themselves through YouTube, or they're selling it, on iTunes, independently. Like you guys, this is not really my type of music, but it's a good example. Like Meghan Trainor, the singer Meghan Trainor.
Yes.
She had this hit 2 years ago. I can't remember what it was.
All About That Bass.
That one. Thank you. She put that out.
Okay, Chris. Yeah.
I'm almost positive she put that out independently. What that means is, without the backing of a record label. Another guy, Macklemore, the rapper Macklemore, the guy from Seattle.
Yeah.
He put that out. He had 2 or 3 hits about 4 years ago. Those are out. Those got put out independently without record label backing, and they just happen to they just happen to be hits. This is the same situation here with Lonzo Ball. The difference is that the LaVar family has to manufacture and has to have inventory, so it costs a lot of money to do what they're doing. So potentially they could be out a lot of money. It's but is it going to be a game changer? That's really what I want to get you guys' opinion on. Is this a game changer in terms of how, particularly with basketball, how products, name branded products are marketed to people?
Well, you can't. He definitely seems like. It definitely seems like a character. He definitely seems like a bit of a wild dude. One of my favorite parts of that ESPN the magazine story that just came out, I think today or yesterday, was basically how he's been genetically engineering his family to produce basketball players since he first saw his wife.
Wow.
So this goes all the way back to the before the womb even. So some of that stuff is just wild. I mean, if anyone remembers Todd Marinovich and the sort of Robo QB story from the late 80s, early 90s, there's definitely some similarities here.
But I agree with you, Steve, in terms of the where I do call him a genius is with the internet and with the sort of there's so many ways to circumvent the regular power structures in these things, and he has been a genius at doing that piece to cut through all of the noise, to create a brand, to get this level of publicity, to have the ball name out there as much as it is at this point, and be able to go around all of those traditional gatekeepers to create his own kind of indie brand. If any of his kids is even marginally okay, or a couple of them are like competent pro basketball players, it probably pans out to be worthwhile. And I was just looking around, and I saw a story the other day. 3D printing of tennis shoes is getting very close to a reality. Adidas has already launched a line of 3D printed ones, and there is a running shoe in China completely 3D produced. So you could even imagine the
ease of manufacturing.
Ease of manufacturing for Ball might come into play here soon if he can actually get one of his sons to blow up.
Because here's the thing, to me, if Kobe Bryant did this, if LeBron James did this, Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, some of these guys, this would work. Because people would buy those shoes because they're a star. I would argue that, I use Kobe just because I'm a Laker fan. I would argue that people didn't buy Kobe sneakers because they're Nike. They bought them because it had his signature on them. And so to that extent, it could work. What really just made the whole story blow up is the price point he set him at was just insanity, right? I mean, I'm not aware of any other $495 basketball show. Maybe one of you guys knows more than me. I don't follow it too closely. But they kind of top out at like $250, $300, I think, on the primary market. So $495 for a shoe for a guy who failed out of the NCAA tournament is really what sets it apart.
And you make a good point, Steve, and you made a great point earlier when you made the analogy, and I thought it was a brilliant one when you made the analogy to, music and music stars and rap stars putting music out on independent labels, and this is essentially the same thing. Mainstream may not pick it up, but he may have independent distributors. But I think the one point that we need to continue to hammer home is he has to be good. He has to play. Nobody was going to buy Kobe Bryant's if he wasn't good. Nobody was going to buy Michael Jordan's if he wasn't good. Now, those guys were can't miss, but again, you made your point. He bowed out of the NCAA tournament, so it's a big question mark. The thing I'm concerned about is I'm wondering if his dad is his marketing genius, and I do think that he has some marketing prowess. I'm wondering if his marketing is ahead of his play, and if dad needs to be careful about, he's talking a good game, but son hasn't played a game in the NBA yet.
I wish we need to do some research.
He has the potential to do well.
Yeah, he does. We need to do some research into how much money, the value of LaVar Ball's mouth. What is the value of the advertising that LaVar Ball has generated through all his crazy antics? Because there's a monetary value attached to that, and he's basically purchased advertising for these shoes through his nonsensical interviews and nonsensical statements that he makes. Mm-hmm. There is a method to his madness, although I think to a large extent, unlike Stephen A. Smith, when we talked about in the last show, who I think would be dramatically different if he was sitting in your living room, he'd probably be a regular guy. I think LaVar Ball would be the exact same. I think this is LaVar Ball. There's some craziness, there's a method to his madness, but I think he's legitimately just a braggadocious loudmouth and unlikable. I think that is him, unlike Stephen A. Smith from the last show, I think.
No, you definitely get the vibe from the ESPN the magazine story that's him 24/7, and it's been him 24/7 since he was in his late teen years. So it seems like what you see is what you get. I don't think there's an on-off switch with him. The interesting thing, I don't follow this very closely at all, but in the world of collector tennis shoes and sneakers, it's not crazy for some pretty expensive ones, right? They're limited runs. There's a whole collector's market. So you could make a case that he's making a pretty smart play in that if he basically releases these limited at that price point, it joins kind of already an expensive, not, brand on the shelves at Kmart shoe, but, there's a whole culture of tennis shoes where you can get them in the thousands, to be honest, depending on how limited what artist.
Market, though. I don't think that's the primary market.
But it does establish the fact that people will pay large amounts for special shoes. So, it's still a gamble, but that market is out there.
So to that point, and that's a great point, I was at an event last week where I saw a really good friend of mine had on a pair of $695 Gucci sneakers. So if someone is willing to pay almost $700 for a pair of sneakers, I think that this is not beyond the realm of possibility. But and there's a certain materialism in the community. Let's be honest. There's a certain level of materialism in the black community. Not just in the black community, but in some of our urban communities where people will find a way to pay $495. However, again, as I go back to, he has to be good, and people have to know him. And I think that with more exposure in the game, not just his dad running his mouth, but with more exposure of him actually playing basketball and being successful, I think he can pull it off.
Was your friend black?
Yes. And the thing is, his sneakers were really nice. And I was like, if I had I do have $695, but my conscience won't let me buy $695 pairs of sneakers. But they look really good. Yes, my friend was black.
I'd be afraid somebody'd step on them or, scratch them or
exactly. You know what? I think what we'll do is if we get off air, I'm going to tweet you guys a picture of them, and you'd be like, "Really?"
Yeah. Well, I would never do it either. That's just insanity. I would never pay that much for any shoes. I don't care what kind of shoes they are.
Dress shoes? Dress shoes, Steve?
No, I would not pay that much for dress shoes. No, no. I'm cheap though. But we're really talking about two separate issues. Because one issue is the marketing price point, right? Because there's a point if it's priced right at which more people will buy the Lonzo Ball shoe, no matter how much of a star he is. Somebody will buy them if they're priced right. So that's one thing, the $495, and that was just the starting price. It actually went up to like $1,000 because I think, it went up to like $600 if you had a big foot, and then if you wanted an autograph shoe, it went up from there. But that's one thing. But the other issue is the whole independent distribution thing going to work? And I think what we've concluded here is it might work, but only if he plays. Like you said, Rich, he's got to be a player.
Yes.
And so the other thing I'd like to throw into this is it going to matter where he's drafted? Because LaVar has he has very explicitly said he wants Lonzo to go to the Lakers because they're LA. It's an LA family. They're LA kids. LA is a marketing genius. Now, what happens if he gets drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks?
Steve, you know what? You and I are kindred spirits because I was just going to say, what if he gets drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks? I swear to God, here's my hand. I was going to say, what if he gets drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks? We're related, bro.
Yeah, somehow. Maybe we are related. It's a good question, though. Can he pull this whole marketing thing off in some, like Milwaukee? I have nothing against the city of Milwaukee. I've been there. It's a halfway decent place. But from an entertainment and marketing standpoint, it's not L.A., it's not Atlanta, it's not New York, it's not Miami. It's pretty backwater in terms of that. So can he pull this off if he's in, an NFL marketing backwater town, like, for example, Milwaukee? It's one thing if you have Nike behind you, or Adidas or Under Armour behind you pushing this stuff. But if you have nobody behind you and you're not in LA where your dad can consistently get, film, he's going to be on the floor, of the Staples Center. He's going to be one of those, he is. But the same is not going to happen if he's with the Milwaukee Bucks, for example. So does the whole setup fall apart if Lonzo does not go to a major market team such as LA? What do you think?
It's still, if he's rookie of the year, it's not going to matter. We'll be talking about $695 tennis shoes. So I think that the he's got to play still holds true. But I definitely see your point. I also, he won't be the first sports dad to talk his son into a better draft position by playing games. Cough, Manning's cough. So, so there, it also means that the same mouth that roared could also get him out of any deal with the Bucks and into the kind of place that they're going to need him to be.
But wait a minute. Hold on a minute. I challenge either one of you to name a starter on the Milwaukee Bucks. Can anybody?
Oh, I'm not going to even try.
Sidney Moncrief, Marcus Johnson. No, I'm sorry. That's
Sidney Moncrief. Come on, man. Well, I say this for a reason because there's actually a really good player. Well, there's actually a very good player on the Bucks. And I'm going to put it's the Greek Freak, right? It's the I was trying to remember. It's Antetokounmpo. So I can't pronounce his name, but the Greek Freak is a Milwaukee Buck. Now that kid is an outstanding basketball player. If he was an LA Laker, it would be he would get a whole nother level of attention. Listen, the Lakers get prime time games, even though they lost, 55 games this year, whatever the number was. The Milwaukee Bucks aren't getting all those primetime games. If they
what though, I think Steve, I think that I think at some point I get your point, but I think Dad needs to at some point needs to fall back, as we say. His dad needs to. I understand what he's doing, and I don't think he's doing anything different than maybe Richard Williams did with Serena and Venus, and a little bit of what Archie Manning did in terms of using influence to make moves. But at some point, I think his dad needs to fall into the background and just let his son play basketball.
Yeah.
Well, I would encourage everyone to go out and read this, and we'll tweet it out and whatnot. The long-form magazine article on the Ball family is quite fascinating. We just scratched the surface on this dude to a degree, looking at the business angle, but he's got a lot of crazy ideas that are baked into that article about what he's got going on with his family. And I am assuming we will probably check back in with this story as it continues to evolve. And the LaVar Ball will continue to be a bit of our spirit animal on the show, I would suspect. All right, so we're going to run into our next topic here. Last couple of weeks, we've been following some of the licensing deals for the NFL and sort of the different changing broadcast models that the NFL is starting to experiment with, kind of get with modern times. And since our last episode, we've seen two pretty big deals, one Amazon and Twitter, to continue to cover NFL games, NFL news, NFL breaking news, etc. So let's add these new developments to our ongoing conversation about the NFL and how it reaches its fans. Rich, you want to give us a bit of an intro? Oh, I'm sorry, Steve. Steve, give us a bit of an intro.
Okay. Well, Twitter. Let's start with Amazon. Amazon basically stole the streaming, the streaming NFL Thursday night game from Twitter. Twitter streamed at the end of the year a couple games. Twitter streamed some games at the end of the year, or this past year rather. Amazon just signed a deal to stream the Thursday night games on the Amazon because you can subscribe to Amazon Prime and get all manner of Amazon produced videos and all sorts of other things. Twitter's deal is not for game products. Twitter's deal is to broadcast on Twitter exclusive pregame content to on the field stuff and other things. That is the Twitter deal. So I think it's the Amazon deal is really what goes more towards what we were talking about last week, which is the streaming stuff, the future of watching sports. Amazon's deal is $50 million, which is chump change. I'm telling you guys, it's chump change. Not to us, not to me, maybe to you guys.
Not me.
Yeah, it's chump change.
They just outbid me.
Yeah, there you go. It's chump change in the world of sports, broadcasting, but it's a start, and the Twitter deal, Twitter's had a lot of, Chris probably knows this better than I do. Twitter's had a lot of problems monetizing themselves. They haven't turned a profit in years and years, despite the fact that they have a very healthy subscribership. So they're doing all sorts of things to try and attract people to Twitter, and that includes, I think they've got Bloomberg, streaming sort of continuously on Twitter now, and they're trying to get into the NFL to help boost traffic to their site. So that's Twitter. Look, it's just another way to watch football. I don't know if I would do it, but I think, the younger you are and the more millennial you are or younger, it's the wave of the future in terms of watching. So, maybe Amazon and their $50 million deal is getting in on the ground floor of something that's going to be the future. Who knows?
If Amazon adds sports packages, I mean, you figure the Amazon Prime yearly subscription, I think it's around $100. Considering that you're now getting a whole library of music content, a whole library of movie and video and TV content, a whole library of actually reduced price goods on food and other kind of household items, and you're getting free shipping, and you're getting special Amazon Prime days. First of all, now that they add sports broadcasting with the NFL, the king at the top of the ticket, that might be your best value in entertainment packaging right now, your Amazon Prime account. So to them, I think it's just continuing to sort of corner their empire here. And they'll overpay or pay, they're not getting exclusive broadcast rights by any means. So for them, it's not that much money. They get to add a huge thing to their package, and everyone's Amazon Prime subscription looks better and better every day.
Well, I'd like to ask Rich a question here, because he's, if I can say your age, you're in your 40s. You've watched.
Yeah, I'm 46.
Okay, you're 46, and you've for decades now watched sports the way you watch them. You, as a 46-year-old, are you willing to change the way you watch sports and watch, say, a football game streaming online on Amazon? Or are you going to be the type of person that's going to, you want to continue doing what you're doing, sitting on your couch or whatever, wherever you sit and watch your TV?
Great question, Steve, and I will answer it this way. At my age, I'm doing one or two things. I'm either at the game or I'm at home. So to answer your question, no, I'm not that active on Sundays where I am not close to either a television or I'm at the game.
Okay, so, but Amazon is going to stream on your computer. You can Bluetooth your computer to your TV. Is there a market for people actually doing that, and watching sports like that? And I think,
Absolutely. I mean, you have, I won't say how much I pay for cable, but I mean, there is a market.
Whatever it
there.
is, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, you have millennials who are tech savvy, who stream, who can essentially technologically be in 2 and 3 places at one time. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, and I'm also not hating on it. But I applaud Amazon for sort of tapping into that market, but that's just not my market. Like I said, I'm going to be at the game.
Yeah.
I'm going to be at home on the couch.
Yeah, and that's me. And that's me too. I'm right with you. That's why I asked you, because I figured you were going to give the same answer I would. It's more support for my argument. I'm just never going to do this. I'm not ever going to watch a TV on a football game on a computer unless I absolutely have to. But I clearly the younger you get, and the more the more tech savvy and the more willing you are to do this. Really, to me, the question is not if people are going to do it. Is it going to expand? Because right now, the NFL is being paid billions with a B dollars by Fox and ESPN and for NBC or CBS rather for these football games. Is Amazon really going to step up and bid billions of dollars? and to have exclusive rights to broadcast football games on Amazon, whatever it is, Prime. I would argue no.
So I'm 45, so I'm the same age bracket as y'all, and I watch plenty of content, regardless, sports and non-sports, on whatever screen I can get a hold of, and plenty of sports. So, and don't forget, most TVs now, let alone a year or two from now, have one button click to Amazon on the TV. So on one of the two major TVs that I watch a good amount of stuff on, it's no different for me. I hit the Amazon button on my remote control and I'm there. So like it's not even necessarily that I'm having to watch it on my phone or a tablet or what have you. I can still go right to my TV to watch it. So the experience is really not that much different, and I'm still utilizing, my most expensive screen that I've got in the house. So to me, it's what's the difference. Also for them, as you said, we're talking the network contracts are in the billions. This is chump change for Amazon, and they get the right to have them. So for them, it's scratch change, and they're in the game. And they'll then position when the game starts to change, and they're ready to receive those viewers. Because I'm telling you, at $100, what the value you get for your Amazon Prime account, if they start adding the 4 major sports leagues to that in some capacity, it's the best money anybody's spending on their entertainment package, cable, non-cable, etc.
I hear you, and I know there are people our age who are more tech savvy than Rich and I in terms of that kind of stuff. And, I've got a friend who does it. He doesn't subscribe to cable. He's got all these streaming services, and he Bluetooths it to his television, and it's streamed. And he's got an Ethernet plug into the back of the computer. I get it. People do that. It's just not me. The real, but I think what's the interesting part of this topic really is someday is the streaming. Is the game streamed on either Amazon or Netflix or Hulu or one of these other sites? Is that going to be exclusive? Are we going to see, Fox NFL Sunday go the way of the dodo bird? I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. It's way too much money. I don't think there's going to be anywhere near the market share, on Hulu, say, or Amazon as it is, the Fox NFL Sunday, afternoon games. It's not
the watershed moment will be when you can use, which they already have, your CBS Direct and not need cable to watch the slate of NFL games. That'll be when the game fully changes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think we got to revisit. We need to revisit this in a couple years. Once the NFL contracts get closer to expiration, and see what happens. If we get if the NFL contracts expire and they get signed up again, sort of in the same manner as they are now, where Fox and 2 of the networks and ESPN have the games, we're going to see another decade of sort of what we have now. Games on TV and streamed, in a non-exclusive fashion, somewhere. But if at the time the games are being, at the time the NFL is soliciting bids, if Amazon steps up, that's when the game changer will happen. I think we're probably one cycle too early for that in terms of marketing. But 20 years from now, when it comes up for the third time, maybe so. It's a fascinating.
The clock's ticking on Direct TV. That's the one thing I think we can all agree on.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
Definitely so.
Yes.
All
Especially when they still have blackouts during storms and bad weather.
Yeah. We should take a minute to laugh at Twitter, just because they overpaid for the NFL on streaming last year. I think they actually had every Thursday night game last year you could stream on Twitter. And Twitter's hemorrhaging money. They have no idea what their business model, and spending big on broadcasting the games or whatever BSE type exclusive content they're going to have is going to be money ill spent.
Well, yeah, as you know, like you said, Twitter's hemorrhaging money. They're the only platform out there really that has built an audience, and they don't know how to monetize the audience. Almost every other platform out there, if you have millions of people looking at it, money can be had, and Twitter just hasn't figured out how to do it on a regular basis, which is a whole nother topic for a whole nother show. Yeah, really. But I find
There's a great essay out there around how Twitter, at this point, Twitter's only option is to actually go full nonprofit because it actually provides a ton of service, public service, but it doesn't know how to monetize, and someone should just treat it like a nonprofit at this point to preserve it.
Well, except the owners. Probably don't want that.
Yeah, we were not about them, but it might be the only way to save it. All right, so maybe we need some of our next topic to creatively think about ways to save Twitter. But we wanted to sort of jump into a conversation about marijuana laws in sports, marijuana culture at large, and how the sports industry is going to have to sort of adapt to this. And maybe look at the NFL in particular, considering I think it's becoming a hot topic, especially when it comes to are there health benefits of marijuana over the other legalized drugs in the sort of treatment ecosystem of NFL players' lives. So we probably will revisit this a number of times. We thought we'd go ahead and jump off into this topic. Rich, you want to kind of lead us off here?
Yes, I'd love to. So, okay. I'm probably, and this may surprise you, I'm probably one of the few people that thinks that that I'm against marijuana use in the NFL. Now, I do recognize and acknowledge that there is some medicinal use and benefits for it. But I'm wondering how the NFL would navigate the possibility of players using medical marijuana or marijuana period and possibly being under the influence of marijuana and playing football when they have the concussion settlement. That's an issue for me. Now, political views aside, I just wonder, it's fascinating how the NFL would navigate around that. You guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, well, let's set the stage here, first of all. Marijuana is currently against federal law. It's on the federal narcotics schedule. Schedule 1, I believe it is. And it's against federal law. That means that no matter what any other states, no matter what the state of Washington, the District of Columbia, the state of Oregon, no matter what laws they pass, technically speaking, those laws are contrary to federal law. Now, it's a whole other topic whether the Justice Department wants to pursue that or the federal government wants to sue these states. It's another topic. But the point is, as long as marijuana remains on the federal narcotics schedule, the NFL cannot be complicit in supporting the use of marijuana by its players. When it's contrary to federal law, they just can't do it. So until that changes, nothing's going to change. And then you throw in the fact that the majority of the owners are politically conservative. They're older. They don't have the same views on marijuana as these players do. Now, personally, I'm probably even more anti-marijuana than you are, Rich. I think, for what it's worth, I think the whole medicinal marijuana thing is nonsense. I think it's basically just people who want to get high. I think it's all a bunch of garbage. That's just my personal opinion on it. But I think what the NFL could do if they want to change their I think if the NFL wants to change their tact on it, they would take the NBA's tact, which is, they don't have to support it, but they don't have to test for it either. Like, for example, I don't get tested I did when I was in the military, but now that I'm, in the private sector, nobody's testing me for drug use. I don't take drugs, but I'm not getting tested. The NFL is choosing to test for marijuana. They don't have to do that. So I think rather than people asking the NFL to change their tact and, approve the use of marijuana, what they really should be doing is asking the NFL to just stop testing for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't there a sort of basically a decriminalization aspect that they could do that would be like the NBA?
Yes.
Which is not that they're not doling out, joints in the training room, instead of pain pills, and we can debate that now or at a later time.
I mean, it's a red herring.
Right.
The pain pill thing, that's a whole other topic. They shouldn't be doing that, but they are. But that doesn't make use of marijuana any more appropriate than it is.
Maybe not. My point is, I think my point is, I'm basically agreeing with you that if they want to do this, they would just go the decriminalization route that the NBA has done, and they just basically take recreational use off the disciplinary list as a league-wide policy.
Well, they're not even doing that. They're just not testing for it. I think if an NBA player, I believe it's still contrary to the rules. They're just not testing for it, I think, is the way an NBA works. In other words, if somebody got arrested for possession of marijuana in the NBA, there may be some level of disciplinary action. Whereas in the NFL, they're going to test for it, and that's a different story.
But what do you,
Go ahead.
But what do you guys think? But what do you guys think though about the point of, in a contact sport, the possibility of guys being under the influence? I mean, of course it happens. It could happen in the NBA. It could happen in any of the sports. But what do you guys think, particularly with the NFL and other sports? What do you think about the possibility of players playing under the influence? It's such at a dangerous, high impact sport.
That could happen now, because if you know how the NFL drug tests, unless you're in the drug program, they get tested once a year. They get tested sort of right before the season starts, and they know it's coming within about a month or so. And so if they pass that test and they're not in one of the stages of the drug program, they're basically free and clear, absent an arrest or something else happens for the entire season. So it may be happening already. They may have players out there that are under the influence of some chemical, whether it's marijuana or something else. It may already be happening. And so I don't know if the NFL, say if the NFL stopped testing for marijuana, if that would change things very much at all, because quite frankly, they're not doing a heck of a lot of testing for it now. They're not doing I think the public is under the impression these guys are doing P tests every week. It's not the case. No. They're doing it once a year, unless you're Trent Williams and you get yourself into one of the stages of the drug program. So I don't know if to answer your question from my perspective is, I don't know if it would really change much of anything.
So probably doesn't come as a big surprise, but I'm pro everything. So I have no moral qualms. I have no practical qualms. I have no policy qualms. So, in fact, I would even take it a step further. I think, whatever these athletes want to do to their bodies at this point, I think we're way, I don't see the difference between LASIK surgery and anabolic steroids to a degree. We can debate that later another time. But at this point, it's their bodies, and I think it's happening. We should just be honest about it. But back to your original point, Rich, if I don't see where you would get any kind of performance enhancing or extra violent or less cautious football players if they were on weed. In fact, if I was a coach, the only thing I'd be worried about is that it would make them not want to be crazed animals out there bashing each other's brains in for 60 plus minutes a game. So I actually don't see how it has any kind of safety and security measures on how they play. I mean, these guys have to, first of all, they are chemically enhanced, legal and otherwise. So I think, to parse out the chemicals that are in their mix about getting them lathered up to play, weed would be pretty low grade on the things that they're in their systems.
I just like
so
to be
Chris, to answer
go ahead, Rich.
To go back and to sort of push on you on that, Chris. I would say if I'm Goodell though, and I get it. I agree with you what you're saying, but from Goodell's standpoint and his lawyers and his cronies, if you have so many players that are suing once they leave the game, where does the marijuana question into the picture? So let's just say, okay, if anything, it makes a player a little, I'm no drug expert on, but if it makes players a little bit less functional, then from a legal standpoint, and Steve, you may want to chime in on this, where does that leave the NFL? I mean, aside from what society says weed does and doesn't do, where are we legally on that?
I mean, are you saying is the NFL going to have liability if it doesn't test for marijuana, basically, and it would thereby?
No, that's not. I'm not saying if it doesn't test. I'm saying what's the NFL's liability if they relax marijuana restrictions And someone wants to come later and say, well, you allow marijuana use, and we know what the effects of marijuana are.
Yeah, I get it. I don't think the NFL, I think the NFL would have very little liability in that circumstance because, the NFL isn't forcing marijuana on people. Now, where they may have liabilities with all these pain pills, they're kind of shoving these pain pills down these players' throats. That's another matter. But, in a circumstance where they sort of consent to marijuana use, I don't think there's any sort of liability. The point, if people take one thing out of this, it's this. The NFL can't and won't and shouldn't ever agree, whether directly or indirectly, with the use and or abuse of marijuana while it's still against federal law. No matter how you feel about it, and Chris and I obviously disagree vehemently because I'm very anti-marijuana. I think these people are just a bunch of stoners, and that's just what I think. And I know everybody out there listening is going to disagree, and that's fine, but I think you guys, I think it's all nonsense. But that aside, the NFL as a major national entity cannot have a policy. It's way too conservative a league to have a policy that runs directly contrary to federal law. So it's never going to happen ever until that changes. And so really what you're only down to is, do they want to relax the testing standards? I hope they don't.
Spoken like a true lawyer.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, soon enough, when it's federally decriminalized or legalized, then they'll have a different thing to debate.
Well, that may be, but that's going to have to wait till 2020, at a minimum. So. That's not on the agenda of Congress and the president. Congress is currently constructed, or this president,
or the attorney general, probably most importantly.
Right.
Yes, we will see. We will see. I'd argue that nothing is going to flip electoral politics in this country a certain way than if they start coming after the legal weed movement. There are things, very little things, as popular with the American electorate as legalized weed, with the data to back me up on that one. But it will be a fascinating story to follow. Hopefully our own Trent Williams can stay out. Hopefully we're not talking about, we can pick more neutral times to revisit this topic than more Trent Williams suspensions. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, it should be said that we thought about this topic because Redskins 7th-round draft choice Josh Harvey Clemens had a number of failed drug tests in college, and which was a big reason why he dropped in the draft. And so, the Redskins have had their share of drug problems, it seems like. I don't have data to back up whether it's more than any other team, but it seems like on a regular basis we have more drug problems than what I notice having on other teams. I can't think of another team where their best player has failed at least, has been in stage 2 of the drug program twice. I think
and to your point, Steve, we can say all we want and we can have our social commentary about marijuana, but the fact is that if our Pro Bowl left tackle gets caught again, we're looking at 10-game suspension.
We're looking at a year, not 10 games. 10 games is the performance-enhancing drug.
Okay,
penalty.
Excuse me. Thank you for correct. A year, so that makes it real for me.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion because to me it's just a stupid test. You're in the drug program. In the immortal words of Stephen A. Smith, lay off the weed. Off the weed.
Yeah. And let me just chime in real quick. I heard Chris Cooley say on the radio with his co-host Kevin Sheehan, and he said that the NFL is so transparent with when they test for weed, and he said, and I don't want to quote, but he indicated that you would have to be pretty negligent if you got caught for weed because they tell you when they test for it, and it's a very small window.
That's why I call it the stupid test.
Yes.
But you know what? Trent Williams, outside of his drug suspensions, has been a total gamer in terms of doesn't matter what ailments he has during the week. He shows up and plays on Sunday. They have him his knee dangling on Tuesday, and he's flattening people on Sunday. Man, if a couple spliffs gets him there as a fan, man, lay off.
I don't know if I can agree with that,
the
Chris.
Vernacular with the spliffs. All right.
I don't know if I can agree with that, Chris, but I get your point.
All right, so this will probably, much like our friend LaVar Ball, this will probably be a topic that we will return to a few times as once it pops up in the news, and as I'm sure the culture and the society and our laws around it will continue to churn, as this is definitely a hot topic. So this brings us to the end of our planned topics. Anything you're looking forward to talking about in future episodes you sort of see coming on the horizon?
Well, it's the CBA. We still haven't got to the CBA yet. We'll get to that at some point here in the short-term future. I want to talk. We want to make sure everybody out there understands the salary cap and its ramifications, and I promise we'll get to that.
Also, I still think this Oakland Raiders to Vegas is still a hot topic.
There's a lot to talk about with that, for sure.
And they're adding a hockey team as well, too. So they're going to go from 0 to 2 in major sports franchises here over the next couple years. One kind of interesting sports story that I'm looking forward to is, will the Chargers be the toast of L.A. within 2 years?
If they win, maybe.
Well, I think that they could be on a way quicker track to winning than the Rams currently. So they could be be interesting to see if they're the toast of L.A.
There is
the battle
another
for
topic.
LA, at least, is an interesting topic.
Yeah, I think another interesting topic, and I actually heard this on local sports talk radio, is there have been some grumblings about Roger Goodell and how long he actually has as the commissioner of the NFL, and I think it's a really good topic to debate in terms of how he has grown the NFL versus how he has hurt the NFL.
Yeah,
I think he's on a ticking time clock to me. That's my take.
That'll be a topic for another day. That's a good topic. I like that. And we'll dissect Mr. Goodell's head one of these weeks.
I'm sure the news will give us plenty of opportunities to discuss the future of old Roger G. All right, so that brings us to the end of another It's Just Business on the Hogstide Network Presents. Stay tuned for the other shows in the Hogstide Network. We'll be back probably in about 2 weeks' time with more stories to bring to you. So for Rich, for Steve, and myself, let me bid you a good night, and thanks for checking us out.
Go Wizards.
Take care, guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye.